What happens when genius meets total collapse? In 1979, Pink Floyd released one of the most haunting albums in rock history, The Wall. Critics called it a masterpiece. Fans called it life-changing, but very few realized. It was also a breakdown, not just of a man, but of a band. And behind its brilliance was a storm of emotional pain, personal trauma, and quiet betrayal. This is the tragic genius behind The Wall, exposed. The shattered mind of Roger Waters. Roger Waters wasn't just writing lyrics in the late 70s. He was bleeding on the page. Behind the success of Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, Waters was quietly unraveling. Fame had made him distant. The loss of his father in World War II still haunted him, and the band's shows were becoming less about the music and more about the spectacle. The breaking point came in Montreal, 1977. Mid-show, a fan was screaming at Waters. Something in him snapped. He leaned forward and spit on the fan. That moment, disgusting, raw, and completely human, became the seed for something bigger. Waters hated what he'd become, hated the wall between him and the people. So he did what only a true artist does when they break down. He started building a story out of it, brick by brick, the birth of Pink. The Wall wasn't just an album, it was a character study, and Waters was both the creator and the subject. The fictional character Pink was a rock star unraveling in real time, abandoned by his father, abused by school, crushed by fame, betrayed by love. Pink builds a wall to protect himself from the world, but in doing so, isolates himself completely. Waters wrote each song as a brick in that wall. Mother. Hey You. Another brick in the wall. Every track was another piece of the psychological fortress. It was personal, theatrical, and deeply symbolic. Waters wasn't just telling Pink's story. He was telling his own, and he was doing it with no apologies. But there was a cost. Waters takes control, and the band fractures. By the time The Wall went into production, Waters had become the dominant creative force in the band, but not everyone was on board. David Gilmour, the soul of Pink Floyd's sound, had his own ideas. He brought in the haunting progression that would become Comfortably Numb, one of the most iconic tracks on the album. But Waters wanted something different. He and Gilmour fought hard over that song. Waters wanted a slow, orchestral piece. Gilmour wanted it stripped down and raw. In the end, they compromised and created something transcendent. But the tension never went away. Gilmour later said, "We weren't a band anymore, just individuals pushing their own ideas." Meanwhile, Rick Wright, the keyboardist, was spiraling from his own pressures. Waters, fed up with Wright's lack of contribution and growing resentment, fired him during the recording of the album. Yes, a founding member of Pink Floyd was fired from the band while still playing on the album. That wasn't just tension, that was war. Making a masterpiece from madness. Despite, or maybe because of, the chaos, The Wall came together as a masterpiece. It was dark, it was cinematic, it was bold. Songs like Don't Leave Me Now and Nobody Home exposed the darkest parts of the human experience. There was no cool here, just pain, laid bare for the world to hear. And the production was massive. Orchestras, sound effects, spoken word transitions. Every element was meticulously crafted, even as the band fell apart behind the scenes. Critics didn't know what to make of it at first, but the fans did. People felt this album, not in a way you dance to, but in a way that makes you sit in silence when it ends. For some, it was a mirror. For others, a lifeline. And for Pink Floyd, it was the end of the beginning. The Wall Tour, bigger than life, colder than death. When The Wall hit the road in 1980, it wasn't just a concert, it was theater. A literal brick wall was built between the band and the audience during the performance. By the end, the band was completely hidden, just like Waters had imagined in his darkest moments. The visuals were stunning. The message, unmistakable. But the irony wasn't lost on fans, or the band. The wall wasn't just a stage prop. It was real. Waters had isolated himself from the audience and from his band. The man who once spat on a fan now performed behind concrete. The tour was so complex and expensive it only hit a few cities. No encore, no joy, just spectacle and emotional gravity. It was brilliant and brutal. The final breakdown and the fall of Pink Floyd. After The Wall, things only got worse. Wright was gone. Gilmour was emotionally checked out. Nick Mason was mostly observing the wreckage. Waters pushed forward with the final cut, but it felt like a Waters solo album in all but name. In 1985, Waters officially left the band. He tried to stop the others from using the name Pink Floyd, calling it his band. Gilmour and Mason disagreed and fought back in court. The band that had once redefined music was now a shattered shell, wrapped in lawsuits and bitterness. And yet, The Wall remained, untouched, unmatched, a monument built from wreckage. Legacy, The Wall, still stands. Today, The Wall is more than just an album. It's a confession, a warning, a diary. Artists don't often show us their breakdowns in real time, but that's what The Wall is, a descent into madness that somehow became art. It's been performed by orchestras, sampled by rappers, covered by pop stars, and yet no version ever matches the weight of the original. Because it wasn't just music, it was pain. Real, raw, and unfiltered. And that's what makes The Wall timeless. Not just because of its sound, but because of its truth. So next time you hear another brick in the wall, or feel that gut punch of comfortably numb, remember this: you're not just listening to music, you're listening to a man fall apart, and somehow build something legendary from the rubble. If this breakdown hit you like the album did, drop a comment below and tell us what The Wall means to you. And if you thought this was deep, wait until you see what really happened between Gilmour and Waters after the dust settled. That story gets even darker.